I grew up in Brooklyn. I grew up poor in the Williamsburg housing projects. And I was an only child in a very dysfunctional family. My parents, actually I thought I was the second coming of Jesus Christ because I never saw my parents hugging and kissing. I thought maybe I was a product of immaculate conception. Any event, the thing that kept me going was humor. And in school, I was like many of the comedians I worship, adore, and write about. I was constant trouble. I needed attention, which I didn't get at home. In fact, throughout my athletic career, my parents never saw me play ball, even though I won a basketball championship twice, once in high school and once in Williamsburg in a tournament. So what I had to do was turn to humor. In the classroom, I crossed my eyes, I made all kinds of commotion, I told jokes, I called out, and I was always the bad child. And humor was my salvation. Also drawing, I was good at drawing. And so throughout my life, I had to deal with a troublesome mother. And I'll give you some examples. When I was still single at the age of 30, my mother would call me up with warning. Joseph, you'll never make me a grandmother. I said, why do you think that way, Mom? Because you will not be able to have babies. I said, why? You're using up all your juice now. I said, what are you talking about, Mom? And my roommates used to listen into our conversation because they would enjoy what was going on. I said, Mom, don't worry. Every morning I take 4 glasses of orange juice. I got plenty of juice. Then finally I got married, and my beautiful wife, who's sitting in the second row, is my very strong supporter and critic. And before she trained me, I used to read from notes, as a good college professor does, and puts his students to sleep. So she said, put away the notes, speak to people face to face, and look, the sun is coming out. It's not waiting tomorrow, right? Like Little Orphan Annie. The sun came out today. Anyway, so my mother was hocking me, when are you getting married? And I finally got married at the age of 32. Then when we got married, we had an apartment, and she says, when are you going to get carpeting? See, as Woody Allen observed, Jews believed in God, carpeting, and finishing one's fast at a Chinese restaurant. So anyway, I said, in due time we'll have carpeting. 3 years into our marriage, I'm driving her home, and my mother says, Joseph, when are you going to make me a grandmother? I said, Mom, turned around, Mom, where's your priorities? First carpeting, then grandchildren, right? You were there. I'm not telling a booba myself. So what happened to me, like many of the comedians, I was a late bloomer. I never finished my dissertation. I'm an ABD. And there is a mantra in academics, publish or perish. And fortunately, my teaching skills, maybe my comedic teaching skills, enabled me to survive. I remember early in my career at LRU, there were 2 students where David is sitting and almost falling asleep. And I didn't mean to, I'm using you as an example. And they were holding hands. It was Donna, I think she was once some beauty queen in Brooklyn, and a boyfriend. And her boyfriend fell asleep. And I said, Donna, please wake him up. And she said, why should I? You put him to sleep, you wake him up. So I learned that humor was a way of communicating and keeping people awake. So I'm in Milwaukee at a conference on popular culture, and I'm giving a talk on Lenny Bruce, who is my favorite comedian. And on the dais were 2 outstanding academicians. One was Leslie Fiedler, the preeminent literary critic in America at that time, who had some very interesting theories about American literature. And there was Rule Denny, who co-authored a very famous sociology tract called The Lonely Crowd in 1950. And while I'm giving my talk on Lenny Bruce, telling the audience why he's important, and someday Mrs. Maisel will marvelously talk about him, anticipating his greatness, I look at Leslie Fiedler and I say to him, I'm quoting you, Professor Fiedler, because I want to get some brownie points. And he stares at me with contempt, sneers, and says, "Es wird dir gut nicht helfen," in Yiddish, which is the biggest put down. It's like there's a joke about, you know, the Dracula joke? Okay. I'll digress later and tell you why that joke is significant. But anyway, I look up at him at the dais. I'm standing in front, and I said, hunched my shoulders, looked like a schlemiel, emulated Woody Allen. I said, "Schwarze seine Yid," and everyone cracked up, even the goyim. So I learned that laughter is an important item. During my grueling oral exam, I was grilled by this anti-Semitic professor. I knew he was anti-Semite, the way he looked at me and the way he dressed like a high Presbyterian. And he said, "Mr. Dorinson, what do you know about the Napoleonic Code?" Well, this is something that Napoleon, when he was Emperor of France, dictated as a law, which said that everything a man owns is his property, including his wife. So I said a few things about the law, and I said it sanctioned male supremacy. He said, "Mr. Dorinson, can you justify that?" And I said, "Haven't you seen Streetcar Named Desire?" Now, you didn't get it, but if you remember, there's a scene where Marlon Brando is talking to his sister-in-law, Blanche, and she's getting on his case, and he says, "Listen, this is Louisiana, and you know something? We have the Napoleonic Code, and I'm busting his house," and he takes the radio and throws it out. Well, the people sitting around saw the movie, understood the movie, got the joke, and I passed my orals. I still have trouble with my anals, but the orals I passed. I learned that humor could be useful as a tool, and I wanted to know how it operated in the Jewish experience, particularly in the Brooklyn Jewish experience. And I remember at the candy store, we would joke about our parents, snarling cops, our teachers, we do imitation. I had one teacher who had a lip that dragged, and because he put cough drops in, and he would yell out if he were misbehaved, "Dorinson, group 3!" And I would say, "Make a group 4," which meant you had extra homework for a week. So we learned to rebel. This was our way out of, you might say, the cocoon. And we developed humorous strategies. But much of the humor was self-directed. We make fun of ourselves. As a Pew survey in 2013 pointed out, Jews identify with humor more so than any other thing other than love for Israel and maybe one, and I think Jewish cooking, which you're an expert on. So we need the eggs, we need the food. And one thing I want to wish everyone from the book of Mel Brooks tonight, because much of the Jewish humor is designed to hold off the Malach HaMoves, the angel of death. So tonight I urge everyone to follow my example. Go to your grocery bin, get knobel, get a clove of garlic, put it in your mouth, and then when the angel of death knocks, the Malach HaMoves, you go to the door, and you exhale, who's there? And you live another night, another day, another year, another 20 years maybe, bis 120. Thank you.